Picture a realm where mountains do not rise from the earth, but float freely through an endless and absolute night. Out in the deep freeze of the solar system, shattered worlds that were violently torn apart have gently gathered themselves back together. They exist not as solid rock, but as fragile flying rubble piles held in place by nothing more than the faintest whisper of mutual gravity. Deep within the lightless expanse, other wanderers hide a much heavier and more resonant secret beneath their battered ancient skins. There are massive exposed cores of dead protoplanets made entirely of solid iron and nickel, sailing through the void as naked metallic ghosts. When microscopic dust strikes these lonely iron giants, the ground rings silently, sending intense seismic shivers racing through a highly conductive crystalline heart. Surprisingly, the universe has also hidden the delicate frozen waters of creation deep inside the most primitive and unassuming charcoal dark stones. Trapped securely inside tiny protective glass beads on these floating archives are minuscule, perfectly spherical bubbles of liquid water. They are measurably older than our own home planet, perfectly preserving the exact chemical recipe of the ancient solar nebula from which we all originally formed. If we were to look closer at this majestic multi-billion-year march, we would realize that this chaotic debris is actually a perfectly choreographed procession. Millions of these silent stones are held in invisible gravitational holding patterns, leading and following the gas giants in a permanent locked waltz. They perfectly bridge the immense gap between mere microscopic dust grains and fully formed planets, occupying the delicate middle ground of cosmic creation. This cosmic structure of destruction and profound beauty is a silent museum, and tonight, the doors to its vast starlit galleries have been left open just for you. As your breathing slows and the heavy, comforting weight of the blanket settles across your resting body, the immense distances of the void shrink away. You are safe. Slowly rotating in the deep cold, the asteroid Gaspra presents a smooth, dust-covered surface to the distant sun. Slowly rotating in the deep cold, the asteroid Gaspra presents a smooth, dust-covered surface to the distant sun. This ancient traveller drifts silently through the vacuum, its asymmetric edges softened by eons of microscopic micrometeorite impacts that have pulverized its rocky exterior into a fine, clinging powder. The gentle, weak gravity of this minor planet barely holds this dusty mantle in place, creating a fragile landscape that would scatter into the void at the slightest disturbance. Deep within its subtle valleys, the regolith settles in undulating waves, perfectly preserving the kinetic memory of ancient collisions. Gaspra wanders eternally through this frigid twilight, a silent testament to the gentle decay and slow, quiet weathering that shapes the oldest artifacts of our solar system. Contrary to the chaotic swarms depicted in popular imagination, the main asteroid belt is an ocean of profound, almost unfathomable emptiness. Far from being a crowded field of danger, this region is actually a tranquil expanse where roughly 1 million miles of pure vacuum separate most neighbours. A traveller standing on the surface of one such asteroid would likely look out into the velvet blackness and see nothing but distant stars, entirely unaware of the millions of other stones sharing the same orbital highway. Picture the immense, quiet isolation of a single pebble drifting in an ocean as wide as the Earth itself. The gravitational influence of these neighbouring bodies is so unimaginably weak that they pass one another like silent ghost ships in the dark, separated by distances so vast that their mutual pull is completely negligible. Collisions in this peaceful epoch of the solar system's history are exceptionally rare events, separated by millions of years of undisturbed coasting. This cosmic structure allows the main belt to exist not as a hazard, but as a serene, suspended gallery of ancient relics. The sheer scale of the space between them guarantees their preservation, allowing these gentle drifters to continue their slow, majestic orbit around the sun in perfect, unbroken isolation. Surprisingly, The universe favours strange and whimsical geometries in the depths of space, far removed from the perfect spheres of massive planets. A handful of these cosmic wanderers resemble giant floating peanuts due to their gentle, two-lobed structure, perfectly preserved in the freezing void. These contact binaries are not single solid rocks, but rather two entirely separate ancient asteroids that found one another in the dark and embraced in a slow, eternal collision. The impact that brought them together was not a violent, shattering cataclysm, but a quiet, gravitational docking at speed slower than a human walking pace. Over countless millennia, their mutual gravity held them in this delicate configuration, creating a narrow, pinched neck of dusty rubble where the two massive lobes meet. This bridge of regolith and broken stone is the only physical connection keeping the twin mountains from drifting back into the lonely expanse. If you were to stand at the base of this cosmic valley, the towering bulks of the two joined worlds would rise up to obscure the stars on either side. It is a fragile, breathtaking monument to the gentle physics of the asteroid belt, where slow attraction triumphs over violent destruction to sculpt entirely new and beautiful forms. Picture a solitary mountain floating free from any planet, silently spinning in an endless night without a horizon to ground it. Stripped of the plains, rivers, and atmospheres that define terrestrial peaks, this jagged monolith exists as a world entirely unto itself, completely untethered from the tectonic forces that birth terrestrial ranges. Its towering cliffs and sheer rock faces plunge directly into the starry abyss, illuminated only by the harsh, unfiltered glare of the distant sun. Without a planetary mass beneath it to dictate gravity's absolute pull, the very concept of a summit loses all traditional meaning on this wandering spire. A loose stone dislodged from its rugged surface would not crash violently to the base, but might instead enter a slow, agonizingly lazy orbit around the mountain's erratic center of mass. The sheer strangeness of this gravitational landscape turns every ridge and valley into a surreal, zero-gravity playground of ancient stone. Notice how the shadows drape across its uneven facets, violently contrasting the blindingly bright peaks with chasms of absolute impenetrable blackness. It is a silent, imposing sentry of the solar system, endlessly tumbling through the cold vacuum while carrying the geological majesty of a full-fledged planet on a microscopic scale. Deep within the shadow of Ceres, microscopic frost crystals can occasionally form on the frozen crater floors, creating a breathtaking and unexpected display of delicate beauty. As the largest body in the main belt, this dwarf planet possesses a massive internal reservoir of ancient frozen water that subtly interacts with the harsh surface vacuum. During its slow rotation, regions of permanent shadow become unimaginably cold, allowing sublimating water vapour from deep within the crust to momentarily freeze upon the dusty regolith. This transient frost is incredibly fragile, existing only in the fleeting moments before the creeping dawn brings the destructive heat of direct sunlight. As the solar rays finally breach the high, jagged rims of the impact basins, the glittering crystals instantly vaporize, turning directly from solid ice back into an invisible, dissipating gas. For a few brief hours, the darkest depths of Ceres sparkle with a diamond-like brilliance that rivals the most pristine terrestrial snowfields. These ephemeral frosts provide a haunting reminder that the asteroid belt is not entirely dry and dead, but dynamically active. The silent exchange of moisture between the buried ice mantle and the empty sky paints a picture of a dormant world still softly breathing into the eternal vacuum of space. This cosmic structure of loose rubble means some asteroids are more like floating gravel pits than the solid, impenetrable boulders we typically imagine. Born from the violent fragmentation of much larger parent bodies, these particular wanderers never managed to fuse their shattered pieces back into a cohesive, singular mass. Instead, millions of individual stones ranging from the size of dust grains to the bulk of city blocks simply cling together through the faintest whispers of mutual gravity. Plunging a hand into the surface of such an asteroid would not meet solid bedrock, but rather a shifting, porous matrix of loose debris and empty voids. Almost half of the entire volume of these celestial bodies is composed of pure, empty space, hidden deep within the dark, labyrinthine gaps between the floating boulders. This spongy, unsolidified architecture makes them incredibly resilient, allowing them to absorb the energy of small impacts like a massive rocky cushion. When micrometeorites strike their surface, the kinetic shock waves do not shatter them, but instead dissipate harmlessly through the vast network of internal empty spaces. They are ghost ships of the main belt, chaotic aggregates of shattered memory gently sailing through the dark, held together by nothing more than the phantom pull of their collective mass. Only a faint polarized glimmer against the background stars reveals the presence of Matilda, a celestial body almost as dark as fresh charcoal. This massive, carbon-rich asteroid is a master of cosmic camouflage, absorbing nearly all the visible light that manages to strike its ancient, heavily cratered surface. Unlike the brighter, stony bodies that reflect the sun's glory, Matilda consumes the light, hiding its immense bulk in the deep shadows of the middle solar system. The composition of this pitch-black wanderer remains incredibly primitive, largely unchanged since the very first moments of the solar nebula's cooling phase. Its surface is dominated by several impossibly large impact craters, basins so vast and deep that the violence required to carve them should have entirely shattered the asteroid into a million pieces. Yet, Matilda survived these apocalyptic strikes, its highly porous, shock-absorbing interior dampening the catastrophic energy and leaving behind massive, silent scars. Peering into one of these giant craters is like looking into the mouth of a lightless cavern that spans dozens of miles across. It drifts through the void like a shadow cast by the ancient past, a massive, silent vault safely preserving the darkest secrets of planetary formation. While many minor planets maintain a stable, spherical orientation, some elongated asteroids spin end over end, creating a rhythmic pulsing of sunlight across their rough facets. These misshapen shards of ancient collisions behave like massive, tumbling batons thrown haphazardly across the vast emptiness of our solar system. As they violently rotate through the vacuum, their highly irregular surface area constantly changes the amount of light they reflect back into the dark expanse. Imagine observing one of these chaotic tumblers from a distance, watching it flare brilliantly as its broadside catches the sun, only to fade into near invisibility a few hours later as it presents its narrow profile. This predictable, metronomic blinking acts as a silent lighthouse beacon, flashing the complex mathematics of angular momentum across millions of miles of empty space. The internal stresses generated by this erratic tumbling create strange, shifting gravitational fields across the asteroid's surface. Loose dust and gravel are constantly subjected to varying degrees of centrifugal force, causing the regolith to slowly migrate toward the ends of the elongated body. It is a dynamic, constantly shifting world, engaged in an endless, dizzying waltz that throws stark, spinning shadows across its own dusty skin. A footprint left in the grey dust of these silent stones would remain entirely undisturbed until the end of the solar system itself, completely immune to the passage of time. The ejector rays radiating outward from an ancient strike look exactly as they did the minute the dust finally settled eons ago. Every microscopic pit carved by a passing micrometeorite, and every towering, jagged rim stands as a pristine, unweathered monument to the chaotic physics of space. This environmental stagnation transforms the entire asteroid belt into an immaculate, uncorrupted museum of cosmic history. To look upon these perfectly frozen landscapes is to read the exact, unedited diary of the universe, written in the enduring language of pulverized stone and infinite silence. When a tiny impact stirs the surface regolith, the resulting dust settling on these ancient surfaces falls incredibly slowly in the weak gravity, taking days to drift just a few meters. Unlike the rapid, heavy plunge of displaced dirt on Earth, the pulverized stone on a small asteroid behaves more like a cloud of thick, viscous smoke slowly expanding into the vacuum. The microscopic grains are suspended in a twilight zone between falling and orbiting, pulled downward by a force thousands of times weaker than our own planet's gravity. If we were to watch this process unfold, it would appear as an agonizingly slow, mesmerizing ballet of jagged grey snowflakes descending in extreme slow motion. The faintest electrostatic charges generated by solar radiation can cause these floating grains to repel one another, further delaying their eventual return to the silent dark ground. Even the gentle pressure of sunlight itself can push against the smallest particles, gently sweeping them across the landscape before they finally come to rest. When the dust finally settles back into the craters and valleys, it forms a perfectly smooth, unblemished blanket of ultrafine powder. This extraordinarily gentle geological process ensures that the stark, violent geometry of the asteroid is always cloaked in the softest, most delicate shroud imaginable. Beneath that delicate shroud of dust, some wandering bodies hide a completely different reality, stripped entirely of their rocky mantles to reveal an exposed metallic heart. Psyche drifts through space as one such naked core, the gleaming, incredibly heavy remnant of an early planet that was violently shattered before it could ever fully form. Unlike the porous, gentle rubble piles of the outer belt, this dense world is a massive solid chunk of iron and nickel hurtling relentlessly through the dark. If we were to look closer at its jagged, unnatural landscape, we would see the raw, unpolished anatomy of a dead world's deepest interior. The titanic collisions that tore away its outer layers left behind a scarred metallic embryo that now sails alone through the freezing vacuum of the solar system. It exists as a ghostly, imposing monument to the brutal, chaotic physics of the early cosmos, where entire protoplanets were casually dismantled by unimaginable kinetic forces. Deep within the interior of these shattered fragments, the immense thermal energy of their violent birth took an almost incomprehensible amount of time to dissipate into the cold void. These heavy iron fragments cooled at an agonizingly slow rate of only a few degrees every million years, allowing the fundamental elements to organize themselves with mathematical perfection. As the molten metal slowly solidified, the iron and nickel separated into intricate, intersecting geometric lattices known as Widmanstätten patterns. This cosmic metallurgy cannot be replicated in any terrestrial laboratory, as the necessary cooling period far exceeds the entire recorded history of human civilization. The resulting crystalline structure runs straight through the very heart of these metallic asteroids, binding the entire world together in an immense, unbreakable three-dimensional grid. It is a hidden, internal architecture of staggering crystalline beauty, forged in complete darkness and sealed away perfectly for billions of years. Imagine standing on a world made entirely of solid metal, where the horizon curves away in harsh, reflective angles instead of soft, dusty hills. The ground beneath your feet would feel impossibly dense and unyielding, a vast expanse of raw cosmic iron that has never known the touch of oxygen or water. When a tiny micrometeorite strikes this metallic surface, the impact does not create a plume of soft dust, but rather causes the very bedrock to vibrate with immense energy. Surprisingly, not all metallic wanderers are entirely composed of cold, grey iron, as some harbour a breathtaking secret hidden within their dense matrices. Golden olivine crystals are deeply embedded in the iron-nickel framework of palisite asteroids, creating natural extraterrestrial stained glass windows suspended in the permanent dark. These semi-precious gemstones, forged at the violent boundary between a shattered planet's metal core and its rocky mantle, were trapped forever when the world was blown apart. When a fragment of a palisite is sliced and held up to the light, the translucent honey-coloured olivine glows warmly against the stark, dark metal grid surrounding it. It is a stunning visual paradox, blending the harsh, unyielding nature of raw cosmic iron with the delicate, fragile beauty of clear, golden glass. These wandering jewel boxes tumble silently through the main belt, carrying the shattered, glittering boundary layers of ghost planets across the immense expanse of space. This dense, heavy architecture means that the fundamental building blocks of human economy are floating freely and in unimaginable abundance just beyond the orbit of Mars. Such staggeringly high concentrations of precious metals exist on a single medium-sized metallic asteroid that its mass entirely eclipses all terrestrial mining history combined. Elements like platinum, gold, and iridium, which are incredibly rare in Earth's crust, make up a significant percentage of these dense travelling cores. During our own planet's molten infancy, most of these heavy, valuable metals sank hopelessly deep into the Earth's inaccessible core, forever out of our reach. Yet out in the freezing vacuum, the exposed hearts of these shattered worlds present these exact same treasures right on their jagged, heavily cratered surfaces. They are silent, floating vaults of incalculable wealth, completely untouched by human hands, and quietly orbiting the sun in a state of absolute pristine preservation. Sunlight reflecting off a metallic asteroid produces a distinctly different visual signature than the soft, diffuse glow of a stony rubble pile. The exposed iron and nickel cast a uniquely polarized gleam across the void, catching the distant solar rays in sharp, brilliant flashes as the asteroid slowly tumbles. Astronomers can carefully observe this specific polarization from Earth, reading the shifting light like a precise cosmic barcode that reveals the rock's heavy, elemental composition. Notice how this harsh, metallic glare cuts through the velvet blackness, refusing to be swallowed by the immense shadows of the outer asteroid belt. The way the light scatters off the unpolished ridges tells a complex story of raw, elemental purity, entirely devoid of the masking dust found on more common bodies. Let the rhythm of your breathing align with this slow, distant pulse of starlight, releasing any lingering tension with each quiet, rhythmic exhale. If we were to look closer at their alien surfaces, we would see intricate, unnatural topographies that look less like geological formations and more like massive frozen droplets. We would find sprawling, interconnected ridges formed by liquid metal shrinking and buckling as it rapidly froze in the ancient frigid vacuum of space. When the catastrophic impacts shattered their parent bodies, immense globs of molten iron were suddenly exposed to temperatures near absolute zero, flash freezing before they could form perfect spheres. The sudden contraction of the rapid cooling process created immense internal pressures, forcing the surface to wrinkle, fold, and tear into sharp, jagged mountain ranges of pure iron. These contraction scars stretch for countless miles across the metallic landscape, a chaotic, frozen record of the exact moment a liquid core was brutally introduced to the void. They remain perfectly preserved to this day, deep metallic canyons that silently trace the dying, thermal spasms of a thoroughly shattered world. Deep within the atomic structure of these iron giants, an invisible and ancient force remains perfectly trapped, completely oblivious to the passage of billions of years. Magnetic fields from the swirling, chaotic early solar nebula are permanently frozen into the iron compass needles of these travelling metallic rocks. As the molten iron slowly cooled below its critical temperature, the internal atoms aligned themselves with the ambient magnetic fields of the infant solar system, locking that orientation in place forever. Today, these wandering lodestones carry their own tiny preserved magnetic pockets, ghost fields that whisper of a time long before the planets had even finished forming. They are celestial tape recorders, passively holding on to the immense magnetic turbulence that once filled the empty spaces between the newly ignited stars. Any modern compass brought near their jagged surfaces would spin wildly, confused by the ancient fossilized magnetism radiating ceaselessly from the cold, dead iron. Despite their complete lack of an atmosphere or liquid oceans, these metallic surfaces do not remain entirely bright and shining as they travel through the dark. A subtle, dark rust covers the outermost layer of some of these bodies, born not from the oxidative touch of water, but from violent interactions with the relentless solar wind. Over eons, highly charged protons and cosmic rays constantly bombard the exposed iron, causing incredibly slow, complex chemical alterations right on the raw metallic surface. This space weathering creates a thin, dull patina that acts as a natural camouflage, significantly darkening the asteroid's bright glare. It is a dry, silent form of corrosion, a gradual darkening brought on by the harsh, unyielding radiation of the very sun they endlessly circle. Just as that subtle patina settles over the ancient metal, allow a deep, comfortable stillness to settle over your relaxing muscles. Yet, this dark, weathered skin is incredibly thin, acting as a fragile protective shell against the endless barrage of the interstellar environment. Beneath the dull, reddish-black cosmic weathering, a massive reservoir of pristine, silver-coloured iron waits, entirely untouched since the absolute dawn of our solar system. If a passing micrometeorite were to strike the surface and scratch away this microscopic layer of rust, the raw, gleaming metal underneath would be violently exposed to the starlight once more. For a brief, spectacular moment, that tiny, fresh scratch would shine with the brilliant, blinding intensity of a polished mirror, reflecting the cosmos with perfect, flawless clarity. It is a profound realization that just millimeters below the ancient, battered exterior lies an endless supply of pristine, uncorrupted stellar material. These heavy, silent wanderers are perfectly sealed time capsules, endlessly protecting the bright, unblemished metallic essence of the universe's chaotic, violent beginning. Just as those iron cores act as perfectly sealed time capsules, endlessly protecting the bright, unblemished metallic essence of the universe's chaotic, violent beginning, a completely different type of preservation occurs further out in the dark. Beyond the invisible boundary known as the frost line, the fundamental nature of these wandering stones radically shifts from dry, heavy rock to highly porous bodies that resemble dirty, cosmic snowballs. Here, the vacuum is sufficiently frigid to allow highly volatile compounds to survive indefinitely, locking away the pristine, unblemished ices that originally form the dense molecular cloud of our nascent solar system. These frozen reservoirs do not shine brightly against the velvet void, but instead deliberately hide their crystalline cargo beneath thick, insulating layers of organic dust and primitive, carbon-rich dirt. If you were to split one of these dark, unassuming lumps open, the interior would not reveal solid metal, but rather a fragile, intricate matrix of shattered rock, heavily laced with ancient, undisturbed ice. It is a quiet, frozen ecology of deep space matter, holding the delicate, frozen waters of the early universe in a state of absolute suspended animation. While they usually remain completely dormant in the deep cold, certain dark asteroids possess a hidden, dynamic nature that dramatically awakens when their highly elliptical orbits bring them creeping inward. As they cross into the warmer inner regions of the solar system, the sudden increase in solar radiation gently bakes their dusty surfaces, sending penetrating warmth down into the buried ice. This subtle heating triggers a slow, magnificent transformation, causing these seemingly dead rocks to suddenly sprout temporary fragile tails of escaping dust and glowing water vapor. Unlike the chaotic, blazing jets of a traditional comet, this outgassing is a subtle, ghostly exhalation that creates a faint, luminous haze trailing gracefully behind the tumbling asteroid. The escaping vapor acts as a microscopic, localized wind, gently lifting the absolute lightest particles of surface dust and carrying them out into the surrounding void. It is a beautiful, transient display of hidden volatility, proving that even the darkest, most unassuming stones can exhale the breath of ancient oceans when finally touched by the sun. Deep inside the largest of these ice bearers, a far more complex and active hydrological cycle, operates completely hidden from our distant telescopes and roaming probes. Beneath the heavily cratered, frozen exterior of the dwarf planet Ceres, scientists believe incredibly warm, briny oceans may still slowly churn in complete, eternal darkness. The exceptionally thick protective crust of ice and rock acts as a massive planet-wide thermal blanket, trapping the subtle residual heat of radioactive decay and keeping the deep interior surprisingly liquid. Imagine a sprawling, abyssal sea spanning hundreds of miles across the core, totally devoid of sunlight yet incredibly rich with the fundamental chemical salts necessary to spark biology. In this pitch-black, highly pressurized environment, slow convection currents might gently stir the heavy, mineral-laden waters across the rocky seafloor in an endless, invisible tide. As you picture the slow, rhythmic churning of this hidden subterranean ocean, let your own pulse slow to match its deep, unhurried, and exceptionally peaceful rhythm. The undeniable presence of this hidden ocean is not just a theoretical model, but a geological reality painted brightly across the scarred face of Ceres for the entire cosmos to see. In distinct areas where massive ancient impacts have severely fractured the thick crust, briny liquid has occasionally welled up to the surface, violently boiling away the moment it hits the vacuum of space. The heavy salts left behind by this rapidly sublimating ice create brilliant, highly reflective white spots that shine like polished beacons from the dark, dusty floor of the Akata crater. These luminous, sprawling deposits are primarily composed of sodium carbonate, a crystalline mineral that stands out in stark, glaring contrast to the surrounding charcoal-coloured landscape. When the creeping sunlight finally strikes the crater floor, these salty scars gleam with an almost artificial intensity, permanently signalling the location of deep-water eruptions. They are the glittering dried tears of a subterranean sea, a permanent, highly visible reminder of the liquid heart beating quietly beneath a dead, frozen shell. This frozen and deeply buried water acts as the ultimate cosmic time capsule, perfectly preserving the exact, delicate chemical recipe of the ancient solar nebula from which we all originally formed. Unlike the heavily processed, continuously recycled oceans sloshing around on Earth, the ice locked within these distant asteroids has never been subjected to atmospheric weathering, biological filtering, or tectonic boiling. It remains incredibly pristine, holding the highly specific isotopic ratios of heavy and light hydrogen exactly as they existed over 4 billion years ago. By carefully analysing the spectral signature of the vapour plumes or the sublimating frost, scientists can literally taste the raw, elemental soup that directly predates the ignition of the sun itself. It provides an uncorrupted chemical baseline, allowing us to perfectly understand the precise distribution of water in the chaotic, swirling disk of the early solar system. These floating, dirty snowballs are the original untouched archives of planetary creation, hoarding the delicate molecular blueprints of life deep within their dark, freezing vaults. Surprisingly, the universe hides a staggering, almost incomprehensible abundance of this life-giving compound within these seemingly barren, floating, rocky reservoirs of the outer belt. If we were to somehow gather all the ice trapped inside the porous matrices of these dark wanderers and melt it down, the resulting volume would easily fill Earth's vast oceans multiple times over. The main asteroid belt is not merely a dry, dusty quarry of floating stone and heavy metal, but a vast, scattered archipelago of frozen deep space lakes. This profound revelation completely shifts our fundamental understanding of the solar system, revealing a massive, watery realm that simply exists in a solid, hidden, and highly fragmented state. The very substance that covers our beautiful blue marble in crashing waves and flowing rivers is drifting silently in the dark, locked away in trillions of unassuming grey stones. As your mind floats effortlessly through this immense invisible ocean of suspended frost, feel your resting limbs grow completely heavy and profoundly relaxed against your bed. Picture the soft, almost imperceptible hiss of ancient ice turning directly into gas as the morning sunlight finally touches a heavily shadowed crater rim. In the absolute vacuum of space, liquid water cannot exist on the surface even for a fraction of a second, meaning the exposed frost simply sublimates, instantly transforming from a solid crystal into an expanding vapor. This rapid phase transition creates a faint, ghostly haze that momentarily clings to the rugged, uneven topography before dispersing entirely into the surrounding void. This incredibly subtle outgassing produces microscopic temporary changes in the asteroid's local environment, briefly altering the way sunlight scatters across the jagged, dusty terrain. If you were standing perfectly still on that rim in a pressurized suit, you would not feel a breeze, but you might notice the faintest softening of the harsh, lunar-like shadows as the vapor drifts past. It is a delicate, completely silent exhalation that occurs millions of times a day across the belt, a fleeting breath of moisture instantly swallowed by the infinite dryness of space. Even on smaller bodies that appear completely dry and barren today, the unmistakable chemical signature of ancient flowing water remains permanently etched into their deepest mineralogy. Hydrous clay minerals found scattered in absolute abundance across the surface of the rubble pile asteroid Bennu prove that liquid water once flowed freely within its parent body, long before it was violently shattered. These specific, highly complex clays can only form in the persistent, long-term presence of warm, liquid water interacting directly with raw, undisturbed silicate rock. The existence of these heavily hydrated veins heavily implies that deep inside a massive ancient protoplanet, internal heating once successfully sustained a thriving wet environment for millions of years. When that doomed parent world was inevitably destroyed by a catastrophic collision, the liquid water quickly boiled away, but the chemically altered crumbly clay survived the explosive vacuum. Today, those dry, flaky minerals tumble endlessly through the void on the surface of Bennu, carrying the physical, fossilized memory of an extinct subterranean river system. If we were to look significantly closer at the microscopic structure of these water-altered rocks, we would find astonishing artifacts safely hidden right at the cellular level of the stone itself. Trapped securely inside tiny protective glass beads on these asteroids are minuscule, perfectly spherical bubbles of liquid water that are measurably older than our own home planet. These microscopic inclusions were formed during the violent flash heating of ancient localized impacts, instantly sealing drops of the parent body's water inside impenetrable, transparent spheres of melted silica. Within these tiny, remarkably durable glass vaults, the fluid has remained perfectly isolated from the harsh vacuum of space, never freezing, boiling, or chemically reacting for billions of years. They are unimaginably small, yet they faithfully contain the exact pristine chemistry of the universe's earliest oceans, permanently suspended in an eternal microscopic droplet. It is a breathtaking paradox to realize that the absolute oldest, most perfect liquid water in the entire solar system is hidden away inside a drifting grain of cosmic sand. Because these primitive bodies are so incredibly dark and heavily dusted, astronomers cannot simply look for the visual, reflective gleam of surface ice to identify these water-rich travelers. Instead, they tune their highly sensitive instruments to the invisible spectrum, discovering that these specific hydrated minerals emit a distinctly unique infrared glow that radiates subtly into the deep cold. This gentle thermal humming acts as an unmistakable identifying fingerprint, perfectly allowing us to map the hidden distribution of moisture across the entire vast expanse of the asteroid belt. This completely invisible light tells a complex story of chemical bonds vibrating with the stored latent energy of the sun, silently broadcasting the presence of trapped water to the distant telescopes of Earth. It is a warm, remarkably persistent signature of life-giving potential, glowing steadily and quietly from within the absolute coldest, darkest regions of the rocky void. Allow the steady, rhythmic warmth of your own breath to profoundly anchor you here, resting completely safe while the universe softly hums its ancient frozen secrets just out of sight. Just as those ancient secrets remain hidden out of sight, some asteroids have found a way to share the lonely expanse of the void with a companion. The asteroid Ida wanders the solar system accompanied by Dactyl, a tiny moon no larger than a city block that circles its larger host in a slow, silent orbit. This discovery fundamentally changed our understanding of minor planets, revealing that even these small, drifting stones can possess their own miniature satellite systems. Dactyl tumbles along like a small, jagged crumb alongside a larger loaf, caught in a gravitational embrace that has lasted for hundreds of millions of years. If we were to watch them from a distance, the pair would appear as two irregular grey specks locked in an eternal rhythmic dance against the velvet backdrop of the stars. Ida's surface is battered by ancient impacts, while Dactyl floats just a few dozen miles away, a tiny sentinel watching over the larger mountain. This partnership serves as a quiet reminder that in the vastness of the cosmos, even the most isolated wanderers can find a constant orbiting partner. Their shared journey through the belt is a testament to the subtle, invisible threads of gravity that bind the universe together into a cohesive and strangely intimate whole. Deep within these binary systems, a far more delicate and ethereal connection often exists between the two orbiting partners. Binary asteroids orbit each other so closely and at such gentle velocities that they can share a tenuous, slowly swirling envelope of local dust. This microscopic debris, kicked up by tiny impacts on both bodies, does not simply float away but is caught in a tug-of-war between the two gravitational wells. It creates a ghostly, invisible cloud that enshrouds both stones, effectively merging their local environments into a single shared atmospheric ghost. This structure of drifting particulates moves with a mesmerizing liquid-like fluidity, circling the center of mass in a path that mimics the orbits of the asteroids themselves. It is a shared heritage of shattered stone, a mutual atmosphere of rubble that binds the two worlds together more physically than gravity alone. As this dust drifts between the companions, it creates a subtle, unifying haze that softens the harsh, unblinking glare of the sun. Allow yourself to feel the lightness of this drifting dust, noticing how your own weight seems to dissolve as you settle further into a state of total, unburdened relaxation. Surprisingly, the universe has designed another way for a solitary stone to surround itself with beauty and grace. Sometimes, an asteroid spins so rapidly around its own axis that it gently throws off equatorial material to form its own delicate, shimmering ring system. This happens when the centrifugal force of the rotation becomes stronger than the asteroid's own internal gravity, causing loose surface rocks and dust to lift off and drift outward. Instead of escaping into the void, this material finds a stable balance, settling into a flat, rotating disk that circles the asteroid's equator like a miniature version of the rings of Saturn. This structure is remarkably fragile, composed of individual pebbles and grains that follow the same orbital path in a perfectly synchronized circular parade. The asteroid effectively sculpts its own halo from its very own substance, shedding its outer layers to create a ring of stardust. It is a slow, elegant process of self-creation, where the energy of motion is transformed into a geometric masterpiece of orbital mechanics. The result is a solitary wanderer transformed into a ringed world, a silent, rotating jewel that carries its own pulverized history in a shimmering protective circle around its middle. Notice the quiet pulse of energy generated by the very proximity of these paired systems, creating a hidden source of warmth in the deep freeze. Gravitational tidal forces gently warm the interiors of these paired rocks as they stretch and squeeze each other across the void in a never-ending cycle of attraction. As the moons orbit their larger hosts, the slight variations in distance cause the solid rock of both bodies to flex and deform, creating internal friction. This process prevents the asteroids from becoming entirely frozen through, maintaining a core temperature that is slightly higher than the absolute zero of the surrounding space. This rhythmic squeezing acts like a cosmic heartbeat, a pulse of energy that flows through the stone as the two worlds dance together. It is a gentle, persistent warming that comes from the simple act of being near another mass, a thermodynamic benefit of partnership in the cold dark. This internal glow is far too faint to be seen with the eyes, but it creates a geological vitality that can drive slow chemical changes deep within the rock. Just as the asteroids are warmed by their shared dance, feel a soft, steady warmth spreading through your own limbs, grounding you in a state of profound and peaceful comfort. Deep in the outer reaches of the solar system, a small and icy body named Chariklo provides one of the most stunning examples of celestial architecture ever discovered. Chariklo, though incredibly small compared to the gas giants, boasts two dense, icy rings that rival the structural beauty of Saturn on a miniature scale. These rings are separated by a distinct narrow gap, suggesting the presence of tiny, undiscovered shepherd moons that keep the icy particles perfectly in line. The rings are composed largely of frozen water, reflecting the cold light of the distant sun with a sharp, crystalline brilliance that belies the asteroid's own dark surface. This cosmic structure is an anomaly of physics, a delicate and highly organized system that should, by all accounts, be too fragile to survive the chaotic migrations of the outer planets. Yet there they remain, two perfect concentric circles of ice dust that have survived for millions of years in a state of tranquil equilibrium. They serve as a miniature crown for an unassuming rock, proving that the most magnificent features of the universe are not reserved for the largest worlds. It is a masterclass in cosmic proportions, showing that elegance and complexity can exist in even the smallest and most isolated corners of the deep space void. Imagine standing on a tiny moon, orbiting a larger asteroid, watching an identical jagged horizon rise and set just a few miles overhead. Because the distance between these partners is so small, the host asteroid would fill a massive portion of the sky, appearing like a colossal, hovering mountain that never truly goes away. You would see the slow, majestic rotation of the larger body, its craters and ridges passing by with a rhythmic, predictable grace that defines the passing of time on your small world. The scale would be so intimate that you could trace the individual boulders on the neighbouring surface, watching the play of light and shadow as the sun moves across both spheres. This perspective is entirely unique to the world of minor planets, where the sky is not a distant dome but a nearby tangible landscape. The horizon of the host world would curve so sharply that you might feel as though you could reach out and touch the stone that guides your moon's path. Night on such a moon would not be a time of total darkness, as the light of the sun would reflect off the massive neighbouring asteroid, bathing your world in a soft, ghostly glow. It is a cosy, enclosed universe where the heavens are filled with the familiar face of a lifelong companion, providing a sense of scale and presence in the infinite blackness. The gravity between these companions is so incredibly weak that a thrown baseball could easily escape the entire system and drift off into interstellar space forever. On these small worlds, the pull toward the centre of the mass is a mere fraction of what we experience on Earth, making every movement feel light, airy, and almost weightless. A simple jump might launch you hundreds of feet into the air, and you would descend back to the surface in a slow, dreamlike arc that lasts for several minutes. Because the escape velocity is so low, even the most casual exertion can break the bonds of the asteroid's gravity, sending objects on a permanent journey into the void. This structure of physics creates a landscape where the ground is barely more than a suggestion, a platform that the universe only loosely requires you to stay upon. Dust grains kicked up by your footsteps might never land, instead entering their own tiny orbits around the asteroid or drifting away to join the shared envelope of the binary system. It is an environment of total physical liberation, where the heavy burdens of mass and weight are replaced by a floating, effortless existence. As you contemplate this weightless reality, allow your own body to feel as though it is floating, disconnected from the pull of the world and resting in a state of perfect, buoyant peace. If we look beyond simple pairs, we find that the universe occasionally complicates this partnership by weaving together triple asteroid systems. In these rare configurations, a primary central body is orbited by two smaller moons, each tracing its own path while simultaneously responding to the gravitational tug of the others. Despite the mathematical complexity of these three-body interactions, many of these systems remain perfectly stable over millions of years. They form a miniature clockwork of stone, a multi-layered dance where every movement is perfectly synchronized with the others in a display of gravitational choreography. The moons often orbit at different distances and inclinations, creating a dynamic sky where two different horizons might rise and fall at varying intervals. This cosmic structure is a testament to the stability that can emerge from complexity, showing that even a three-way tug-of-war can result in a state of long-term tranquil equilibrium. These systems are the rare gems of the asteroid belt, proving that gravity can sculpt arrangements that are as intricate as they are enduring. They drift through the dark like a family of stones, forever bound together in a complex rhythmic embrace that defies the chaotic nature of the surrounding void. A gentle collision in the ancient past likely formed these pairs, splitting a parent body into lifelong inseparable orbital companions through a process of gravitational rebirth. Rather than being born as separate entities, many binary asteroids were once a single, larger world that was struck by a smaller rock at just the right angle and velocity. Instead of a total shattering, the impact caused the asteroid to split apart, but the pieces did not have enough energy to fully escape one another's pull. They drifted apart just far enough to find a stable orbit, transitioning from a single mountain into a pair of dancing partners. This structure of origin means that these companions are often made of the exact same material, sharing the same mineral heart and geological history. They are literal mirror images of a former self, two halves of a whole that have spent billions of years relearning how to be together in a new configuration. It is a slow, patient reconciliation that occurs across the vastness of time, turning a moment of violent impact into an eternity of companionship. This gentle legacy of union reminds us that even in a universe of collisions, the ultimate result is often the creation of something beautiful, enduring, and deeply connected. In the most perfectly aligned moments of their journey, sunlight perfectly illuminates the smaller moon as it casts a slow, creeping eclipse shadow across the dusty surface of its larger host. As the moon passes between the sun and the primary asteroid, a sharp, dark circle of blackness begins to crawl across the grey, cratered landscape, turning the bright day into a momentary, localized night. This shadow moves with a deliberate, unhurried pace, revealing the exact contours of the ground as it passes over ridges and dips into deep valleys. For those few minutes, the temperature on the shadowed surface drops precipitously, a brief chill that ripples through the rock before the sun returns. This cosmic structure is a miniature version of the eclipses we see on Earth, yet it happens with a frequency and intimacy that is unique to the world of minor planets. The shadow acts as a dark finger tracing the history of the host asteroid, a fleeting mark made by a companion that is always present even when it cannot be seen. It is a silent, visual confirmation of their bond, a way for the smaller world to leave its mark on the larger one without ever making contact. As this dark shadow passes and the light returns, let the last of your thoughts drift away, replaced by the profound, quiet stillness of the asteroid's long and peaceful journey through the stars. In that profound stillness, a massive and highly organized procession follows a giant path through the darkness. Swarms of Trojan asteroids share Jupiter's orbit, leading and following the gas giant in an eternal locked procession around the Sun. These celestial escorts do not wander randomly, but are held in place by invisible gravitational anchors, travelling in vast clusters that occupy the same orbital track as the King of Planets. If we were to look closer at this immense parade, we would see thousands of individual rocks moving with a synchronized, steady grace that mirrors the motion of the planet itself. They are divided into two distinct camps: the Greek camp, which scouts the path ahead, and the Trojan camp, which guards the wake behind. This cosmic structure creates a magnificent, balanced symmetry in the outer solar system, where the largest planet acts as a shepherd for a sprawling family of smaller, silent stones. Their journey is one of absolute cosmic loyalty, as they have remained tethered to these specific regions of space since the very dawn of the planetary era. They sail through the void as a unified front, never catching up to the giant planet and never falling behind. It is a majestic, multi-billion-year march that showcases the elegant and unwavering choreography of the heavens. These trapped bodies sit comfortably in stable Lagrange points, where the intense gravitational tug-of-war between the Sun and Jupiter perfectly cancels out. These specific regions, known as Lagrange points 4 and 5, act as invisible valleys in the fabric of space-time, collecting any material that wanders into their influence. Within these gravitational pockets, the forces that would normally pull a rock toward a collision or eject it from the system are held in a state of perfect, tranquil equilibrium. Surprisingly, the universe has created these safe havens where the most volatile forces of gravity are transmuted into a cradling, protective embrace. An asteroid resting in a Lagrange point feels no external pull in any direction, allowing it to drift in a state of perpetual, weightless rest. This cosmic structure serves as a natural storage vault, gathering the debris of the early solar system and holding it in a secure, unchanging location. The stones within these points do not just sit still, but perform a slow, rhythmic libration, gently oscillating around the center of the gravitational well in a mesmerizing, looping dance. It is a place of profound environmental stability, where the chaotic migrations of the outer planets have little to no impact on the silent inhabitants. Here, the laws of physics provide a permanent sanctuary, a peaceful anchorage in the middle of a vast and moving solar system. Far from being chaotic wanderers, these escorts have maintained their precise holding patterns for over 4 billion years, serving as ancient sentinels of the outer realms. While other asteroids in the main belt might be jostled or redirected by the influence of passing worlds, the Trojans exist in a state of temporal stagnation. Their orbits are so securely locked that they have witnessed the entire evolution of the solar system from the exact same vantage point. This structure of long-term stability makes them some of the most reliable witnesses to the history of the cosmos, preserving their original orbital arrangements since the day they were captured. They have watched the sun ignite, the gas giants migrate, and the inner planets form, all while remaining perfectly centered in their invisible gravity wells. As you consider this immense span of time, allow your own body to find a similar sense of enduring, quiet stability, letting the weight of your limbs sink deeply into your resting place. This permanence is a rare quality in a universe defined by constant change and violent upheaval. The Trojans represent a triumph of order over chaos, a population of stones that refuse to be scattered by the winds of time. They remain exactly where they were placed, a fixed and unmoving population that offers a sense of continuity in a world of endless movement. If we were to look closer at the individual members of this procession, we would see that many of these trapped rocks hold a deep, dusky reddish hue. This distinctive colour is not the result of metallic iron or volcanic activity, but is slowly painted on by eons of exposure to complex organic compounds and the relentless bombardment of ultraviolet starlight. In the frigid depths of the Jupiter system, carbon-rich materials on the surface undergo a slow, chemical transformation known as space weathering. Over billions of years, these molecules are baked into thick, dark tholins, organic residues that absorb almost all visible light except for a faint auburn glow. This cosmic structure of the surface acts as a protective shield, sealing the primitive interior of the asteroid beneath a layer of ancient sun-baked carbon. The resulting colour is a visual testament to the sheer age of these bodies, a deep crimson badge of honour earned through billions of years of solitary exposure to the void. This reddish tint contrasts sharply against the bright, icy moons of the giant planet, marking the Trojans as distinct and primitive relics from a much older era. They are the dark, brooding companions of the gas giant, carrying the chemical signature of the outer solar nebula in their very skin. This organic palette provides a stunningly beautiful and sombre aesthetic to these distant clusters, making them appear as a collection of dark, rusted jewels drifting in the cold. Surprisingly, the universe has not reserved this elegant guardianship for the giant planets alone, as even our own world possesses a small and mysterious entourage. Earth also has its own tiny companions, known as horseshoe libration asteroids, that dance a slow, spiralling path along our orbit in a display of complex orbital mechanics. These rocks do not circle us like a moon, but follow a peculiar wandering trajectory that takes them nearly the entire way around the Sun before they return to our vicinity. This structure of motion is incredibly graceful, as the asteroid approaches Earth, feels our gravity, and is then gently repelled into a different orbital track that sends it away for hundreds of years. From a stationary perspective, the asteroid's path looks like a giant open-ended horseshoe that never quite closes its loop. As you visualize this wide, sweeping arc across the solar system, feel your breath lengthening and becoming just as steady and expansive as the path of these distant travelers. These companions are transient visitors that stay for a few thousand years before eventually drifting away, replaced by new stones caught in the same gravitational game. They remind us that even our familiar home is part of a larger interactive community of drifting matter. Earth is never truly alone in its journey, as it is always accompanied by these silent, spiraling ghosts that share our path through the stars. This structure ensures that the massive tidal forces and radiation belts of Jupiter never disturb the delicate, primitive surfaces of the Trojan rocks. They exist in a state of protected isolation, benefiting from the planet's gravity without ever having to endure its destructive proximity. It is a masterclass in celestial organization, where the chaotic potential of the solar system is refined into a beautiful and functional hierarchy. The math that governs these swarms is as ancient as the sun itself, a fundamental code written into the very movement of the spheres. This invisible separation creates a sense of profound order and purpose in a region of space that might otherwise be a field of debris. It is a quiet, mathematical harmony that ensures each body stays in its designated place for all of eternity. Within these stable zones, destructive collisions are incredibly rare, making the Trojans some of the most undisturbed and pristine relics in existence. Because all the asteroids in a specific cluster are moving in the same direction at nearly identical speeds, they behave more like a school of fish than a chaotic storm. When they do happen to pass near one another, it is a slow and gentle encounter rather than a violent, shattering impact. This environment of safety has allowed the Trojans to preserve their original shapes and surface features for billions of years without the constant threat of erasure. While the main belt is a place of frequent recycling and fragmentation, these Lagrange points act as quiet, cosmic museums. As you contemplate this place of total safety and preservation, allow your heart rate to settle into a deep, rhythmic calm, knowing that you are just as protected in this moment of rest. Every crater on their surfaces is likely billions of years old, an unedited record of the solar system's earliest days. They are the survivors of a more violent era, now resting in a region of space where time seems to have slowed to a crawl. This lack of conflict makes the Trojan clusters some of the most peaceful environments in the entire planetary neighbourhood. A single passing comet can occasionally be gently captured by these massive gravity wells, transitioning from a restless, long-range nomad to a permanent resident of the Trojan cluster. This process of capture is a slow and delicate celestial maneuver, where the combined gravity of the Sun and Jupiter acts like a soft net. The comet, once a traveller of the cold and distant Kuiper belt, finds its energy gradually drained by the gravitational interplay until it falls into a stable holding pattern. This structure of capture allows the Trojan swarms to act as a cosmic crossroads, gathering material from the furthest reaches of the solar system. Its once active tail of gas and dust slowly fades away as it settles into the quiet life of an asteroid, losing its identity as a wanderer to become a silent escort. It is a story of retirement in the deep dark, where a traveller of the stars finally finds a place to rest and remain. This constant, slow influx of new material keeps the Trojan swarms diverse, blending the chemistry of the outer solar system with the established population of the inner belt. It is a reminder that these gravitational anchors are always open to new companions, provided they move at the right speed and angle. The cluster is a gathering place, a collection of histories that have converged in a single, stable point of light. Deep within the darkness, the true scale of this hidden army is revealed, challenging our perceptions of how much matter is actually drifting in our vicinity. The exact number of these silent followers around Jupiter rivals the entire population of the main asteroid belt itself, comprising millions of individual stones of every conceivable size. While we often focus on the ring between Mars and Jupiter, these two hidden clusters represent an equally massive and important component of our solar system's mass. This structure reveals a vast reservoir of material in plain sight, hidden within the orbital path of a single planet. It is an immense, fragmented world of its own, a second belt of stones that exists in a state of perfect locked synchronization. As you imagine this vast hidden multitude drifting together, feel a sense of profound connection to the immense scale of the cosmos, letting your mind expand as your body remains perfectly still. This hidden abundance suggests that the process of planetary formation was incredibly messy, leaving behind vast quantities of building blocks that were never quite utilized. These millions of rocks are the leftovers of creation, a massive surplus of stone and ice that was swept into the corners of the system. They represent a significant portion of the story of our origins, waiting quietly in their designated zones to be understood. Deeply entwined in an intricate orbital resonance, these millions of stones silently sing the gravitational song of the outer solar system's early architecture. Their movement is not just a result of their current location, but a living echo of the massive planetary migrations that took place billions of years ago. The way the Trojans are distributed and the specific angles of their orbits provide a perfect, unedited map of how the giant planets once moved and jostled for position. This structure is a fossilized record of the music of the spheres, a symphony written in the paths of drifting rock. By studying the precise timing and geometry of their waltz, scientists can reconstruct the violent and majestic history of the entire solar system's birth. It is a profound, non-verbal language that speaks of gravity, momentum, and the slow, inevitable settling of the universe into its current stable form. As they continue their eternal locked procession around the sun, they maintain the harmony that allows the inner planets to remain in their peaceful orbits. They are the stabilizers of the system, the silent guardians of the orbital status quo. Their song is one of endurance and balance, a quiet and persistent melody that will continue to play as long as the sun continues to shine. This enduring and persistent melody of the cosmos finds its most material expression in the dark, primitive stones known as carbonaceous chondrites. These asteroids are the absolute guardians of the orbital status quo, drifting through the vacuum as the most pristine and unchanged relics from the dawn of time. Unlike the metallic cores or icy snowballs of other regions, these bodies are composed of a deep, charcoal-like matrix that has remained undisturbed for billions of years. Surprisingly, the universe has tucked away complex amino acids within these porous, sooty structures, providing the fundamental biological building blocks of life itself. These organic molecules are not merely accidental visitors, but are woven into the very fabric of the asteroid, preserved in the deep cold where chemistry has almost entirely stopped. They represent a cosmic inheritance, a library of life's ingredients that existed long before the first cell ever divided on a young and cooling Earth. If we were to look closer at their crumbly surfaces, we would find a complex arrangement of carbon-rich minerals that act as a natural protective vault. This material is so fragile that it would easily disintegrate in a planetary atmosphere, yet it survives perfectly in the gentle, weightless environment of the main belt. It is a profound realization that the seeds of our own existence were once just drifting grains of dark sand, floating silently in the eternal dark between the newly formed worlds. Deep within the microscopic layers of these charcoal-coloured matrices lie tiny, resilient specks of matter called pre-solar grains. These particles did not originate in our own solar system, but were forged in the fiery terminal breaths of ancient stars that vanished long before our sun ever ignited. They are the ultimate survivors, having endured the long and lonely voyage through the interstellar medium to eventually be gathered by the gravity of our nascent sun. These grains act as tiny, indestructible capsules of history, containing isotopic signatures that are entirely alien to our local neighbourhood. They tell the story of distant stellar nurseries and the violent deaths of massive stars that scattered their essence across the Milky Way. When we hold a piece of an asteroid containing these grains, we are literally touching the dust of another solar system, one that completed its entire life cycle before ours even began. This structure of ancient matter allows us to understand the vast chemical diversity that preceded the planets, revealing a universe that was already rich and complex at its birth. The grains have remained locked in their stony prisons for more than 4 billion years, entirely immune to the heat and pressure that erase the history of larger worlds. They are the oldest solid things we can ever hope to encounter, a handful of stardust that has witnessed the turn of the galaxy. This cosmic structure of ancient history also contains countless microscopic diamonds, forged in the unimaginable shockwaves of distant, exploding supernovas. These stardust diamonds drift quietly within the fragile, crumbling space rock, carrying the immense pressure of their violent birth into the absolute stillness of the asteroid belt. Because they are so small and incredibly durable, they act as permanent crystalline messengers from the heart of long-dead stars. The process that created them was one of total destruction and simultaneous creation, where the carbon of a dying star was compressed into a lattice of perfect clarity. They survived the transit across the void, resisting the erosive forces of cosmic rays and the intense heat of the early nebula. Now, they sit as microscopic sparkles hidden in a dark, dusty matrix, a million tiny stars trapped in a single grain of asteroid stone. Notice how these tiny gems represent the ultimate endurance, having travelled further and lasted longer than any mountain on our own planet. As you consider the incredible journey of these microscopic diamonds, allow your own body to sink a little deeper into its resting place. Feel the steady, grounding weight of your limbs as they relax, mirroring the deep and enduring peace of these stones as they drift through the black. If we were to look closer at these pristine fragments, we would realise that they offer us a way to step entirely outside of time as we know it. By studying these asteroids, we can literally hold a piece of the universe that existed before the Earth was even a chaotic disk of dust and gas. They are the only objects within our reach that have remained completely unchanged for billions of years, offering a direct link to the pre-planetary era. These rocks were present when the first heavy elements were being sorted by gravity, and when the gas giants were still massive, swirling vortices of hydrogen. They have essentially ignored the entire history of life and geology, preferring to remain in a state of perfectly frozen stasis. This makes them the ultimate archives of the cosmos, protecting a version of the solar system that was once fresh and newly formed. It is a humbling and peaceful thought to realise that these small, wandering stones have outlived every civilization and every ocean. They carry the blueprints of our origin without any of the noise or corruption introduced by billions of years of planetary change. To touch them is to touch the absolute beginning of our story, a moment of pure potential captured in a fragment of dark stone. The mineralogy of these asteroids is a precise map of where the different elements settled as the Sun first began to glow. By reading the patterns of crystallization, we can determine the exact chemical recipe that was used to build the rocky planets. It is a slow, quiet process of deduction that reveals the hidden logic behind the distribution of matter in our neighbourhood. This museum is scattered across millions of miles, but its contents are perfectly synchronized, sharing the same fundamental narrative of creation. Every asteroid is a unique volume in this library, contributing its own specific details to the overarching story of how a cloud of dust became a home. As you visualize this vast, silent library of stones, feel a sense of profound and quiet clarity spreading through your mind. Surprisingly, the universe reveals its age through bright white flecks known as calcium-aluminum-rich inclusions that dot the dark surface of these primitive rocks. These tiny, irregularly shaped clusters are the absolute oldest solid objects in our entire solar neighbourhood, having crystallized during the very first moments of the nebula's cooling. They appear like bright stars embedded in a dark, carbon-rich sky, marking the definitive moment that the first solids emerge from the swirling gas. The chemistry required to form these inclusions is incredibly specific, involving temperatures so high they could only exist near the newborn sun. They were likely blasted outward into the colder reaches of the belt by powerful solar winds, where they were eventually caught and incorporated into the darker asteroids. This means that every one of these white flecks is a traveller from the furnace of the early sun, carrying the heat of creation into the deep freeze of the belt. They serve as the 0 point on our cosmic clock, the benchmark against which all other ages in the solar system are measured. Their presence in a dark asteroid is a sign of total antiquity, a geological stamp of authenticity that confirms the stone's primitive nature. They are the anchors of time, staying perfectly white and distinct against the charcoal backdrop of their ancient stony hosts. Notice how the microscopic dust from these ancient bodies constantly rains down on Earth in a never-ending invisible shower of history. Dozens of tons of this interstellar material settle into our atmosphere every single day, drifting slowly down to the surface of our planet as if it were a light cosmic snow. Every square metre of our world is eventually touched by these tiny fragments of the asteroid belt, bridging the gap between the stars and our feet. This cosmic structure means that the very floor you walk on and the air you breathe are subtly enriched with the dust of distant, wandering stones. These particles are often so small that they survive the heat of entry, settling into the oceans and the soil as pristine samples of the outer void. You're constantly interacting with the faint, persistent memory of the ancient Stardust chronicles without even realizing it. As you notice the effortless rhythm of your own breath, realize that it is a gentle and constant connection to these vast cycles of the universe moving around you. Allow this connection to ground you in a state of total, peaceful belonging, knowing that the matter of the stars is part of your own being. The rain of dust is a silent reminder that the boundaries between Earth and the cosmos are far more porous than they appear. Deep within their atomic framework, analysing their specific isotopic signatures reveals a dramatic and chaotic early period defined by immense searing heat, followed by billions of years of deep freeze. These fluctuations are locked into the specific ratios of oxygen and hydrogen, providing a high-fidelity thermal map of the early solar system's turbulent youth. The transition from the violent fires of creation to the serene silence of the void is recorded in the very bonds of the minerals. This isotopic clock allows us to see when the ice first began to form and when the first massive collisions stirred the dust of the nebula. It is a non-verbal history written in the language of atoms, one that is entirely immune to the passage of time or the interference of light. By decoding these signatures, we can see the exact heartbeat of the solar system as it settled into its current stable form. The stones have carried this information through the dark for 4 billion years, never once losing the data or allowing it to be corrupted. They are the ultimate hard drives of the cosmos, preserving a record of the most energetic and transformative events in the history of our world. This record is one of total, unwavering accuracy, a silent testimony to the power of memory in the deep freeze of the vacuum. This structure of organic preservation is further enhanced by the way these floating archives have perfectly protected their delicate cargo from the harsh radiation of the sun for eons. The thick layers of carbon-rich regolith act as an effective shield, ensuring that the fragile chemical precursors of life are never broken apart by the relentless solar wind. They serve as safe, travelling vaults that have carried their precious materials across the vastness of space without compromise or decay. Inside these asteroids, the environment is as quiet and unchanging as the deepest cave, protected from the flickering light of the stars and the violent bursts of the sun. This isolation is what allows the complex organic chains to remain intact, waiting for the moment they might be delivered to a planet's surface. It is a passive, patient form of protection that has lasted longer than the continents themselves. Surprisingly, the most fragile things in the universe are often found in the most hostile environments, simply because they have found the perfect place to hide. These asteroids are the cosmic cradles, holding the delicate blueprints of existence in a protective embrace of cold, dark stone. Feel this same sense of protection and insulation as you rest, knowing that your own space is just as quiet and secure as the heart of a drifting stone. Surprisingly, these drifting stones also serve as reliable, silent witnesses to the sweeping migration of the giant planets that once violently reshaped the early solar system. The chaotic movements of Jupiter and Saturn acted like a massive gravitational rake, dragging these primitive asteroids from the outer reaches of the nebula into the stable orbits they occupy today. Their current positions are the final, stable footprints of a planetary game of musical chairs that ended billions of years ago. The specific mix of rocky and icy bodies in the main belt is a direct result of this ancient planetary dance. By mapping where these different types of asteroids ended up, we can reconstruct the exact path the gas giants took as they moved toward and away from the Sun. It is a massive three-dimensional puzzle where each stone is a piece that helps us see the larger picture of our history. They are the survivors of a time of total upheaval, now resting in a region of space that is defined by its peace and predictability. Their presence in the belt is a permanent physical record of the most dramatic events to ever occur in our neighbourhood. As they continue to drift in their current stable paths, they remain the quiet guardians of a history that would otherwise be lost to the void. While the planets stand as solid monuments to geological force, some wanderers in the void exist as mere echoes of a world that was once whole. The asteroid Itokawa is not a solid rock but a flying rubble pile, entirely composed of shattered debris that gently clings together in the dark through the most tenuous gravitational embrace. Named after the pioneer of Japanese rocketry, this strange sea otter-shaped body is a collection of thousands of individual boulders and pebbles that have regrouped after a catastrophic collision. If we were to attempt a descent onto this strange, fragmented terrain, the experience would challenge our deepest physical instincts in ways no other world could. Landing on such a surface is less like striking solid ground, and more like stepping into a vast, silent ball pit of jagged stones where no single boulder is truly anchored. Instead of a firm, unyielding impact, your weight would cause the surface to shift and undulate as the loose rocks adjust to your presence, swallowing the momentum of your arrival in a slow, rhythmic rustle. The lack of a solid crust means that the asteroid's shape is constantly, albeit imperceptibly, changing as the boulders settle into more stable and comfortable positions. You would feel the gentle, vibrationless movement of the ground beneath you, a tactile reminder that you're standing on a heap of debris rather than a planet. Every movement on the surface sends a slow-motion cascade of gravel and dust through the gaps, as the entire body behaves more like a thick, rocky liquid than a solid object. It is a world without a flaw, an island of gravel where the boundary between the ground and the sky is a porous, ever-shifting frontier. Surprisingly, the interior of these wanderers is far less substantial than their imposing jagged silhouettes might suggest to a distant observer. Huge empty voids make up more than half the volume of these bodies, rendering them as porous as a cosmic sponge drifting through the vacuum of the main belt. Because the boulders were gathered together in a haphazard, low-energy fashion, they have never been compressed into a solid mass, leaving massive subterranean caverns of pure nothingness throughout the asteroid's core. If we could peer through the surface, we would see a labyrinth of shadows where light has never touched, a hollow world where the ground is merely a thin lattice of interlocking stones. This extreme porosity makes the rubble piles incredibly light for their size, allowing them to drift with a buoyancy that seems to defy the heavy laws of physics. They are ghost worlds, mostly composed of the very void they inhabit, carrying more emptiness than matter in their long journey around the sun. This hidden spaciousness provides a quiet sanctuary for the original vacuum of the early solar nebula, trapped forever between the stones. Deep within the loose grain of the asteroid, the very nature of energy transfer is fundamentally altered by the lack of solid connection. Seismic waves from a small impact travel agonizingly slowly through this loose material, rapidly dissipating harmlessly in the dust and the gaps between the rocks. In a solid planet, an impact sends a sharp, fast shockwave ringing through the entire crust, but here, the energy is muffled and absorbed by the billions of tiny, unanchored surfaces. The shockwaves are forced to navigate a tortuous path, leaping from one boulder to the next and losing strength with every single transition. This creates a muffled subterranean silence that protects the overall structure of the asteroid from being torn apart by internal vibrations. As these silent ripples fade into the heart of the stone, allow your own body to sink into its resting place, feeling any lingering tension dissipate just as harmlessly as a cosmic tremor in a field of dust. This cosmic structure of low gravity and constant motion leads to an unexpected and highly organized arrangement of matter on the surface. The weak gravity forces the surface boulders to gradually align themselves in strange, unnatural sorting patterns based on their mass and size. Through a process similar to the Brazil nut effect found on Earth, larger rocks are slowly vibrated toward the surface, while smaller grains of sand sift downward into the deep, hidden crevices. Over millions of years, this creates a landscape where massive, jagged monoliths appear to be carefully placed on top of a bed of much finer material. It is a display of natural order emerging from a seemingly chaotic heap of rubble. A slow-motion sorting machine powered by nothing more than the asteroid's own rotation and distant impacts. This sorting gives the rubble pile a deceptively manicured appearance, as if a cosmic hand had intentionally arranged the larger stones to face the stars. It is a peaceful, automated gardening of the void, ensuring that every grain finds its perfect place in the silence. Such a disintegration would not be a violent explosion, but a gentle shedding of mass, a slow-motion unravelling of a world that was only ever loosely assembled. The boulders would continue to orbit the sun in a long, glittering ribbon of debris, a ghost of the asteroid that once was. It is a reminder that these worlds are not permanent monuments, but temporary gatherings of matter that only exist as long as the cosmic forces remain in a delicate spinning balance. The stones would simply drift apart, returning to the solitary paths they followed before the rubble pile ever formed. Notice the deep structural resilience of this arrangement, and let a similar sense of effortless strength flow through your own heavy limbs as you remain perfectly still. This spongy internal structure allows rubble pile asteroids to absorb massive high-velocity impacts without shattering, acting exactly like a cosmic shock absorber in the face of destruction. When a smaller rock strikes the surface, the energy is swallowed by the shifting boulders and the vast empty voids, preventing the shock from travelling through the entire body. It acts as a safeguard against total annihilation, allowing the asteroid to survive collisions that would easily crack a solid metallic or stony body into pieces. By refusing to be solid, the rubble pile gains a type of immortality through its own flexibility, bending with the force of the universe rather than breaking against it. It is a masterclass in survival through softness, proving that the most enduring things in the cosmos are often those that are the least rigid. This internal cushioning ensures that the asteroid can carry the scars of its journey without ever losing its fundamental drifting identity. Fine dust and pulverized stone fill the deep cracks between massive boulders, creating smooth, flat ponds of regolith in the regions where the gravity is lowest. These ponds appear as tranquil grey mirrors of dust amidst the jagged chaos of the surrounding terrain, providing the only level ground on the entire wandering world. They are formed as the finest particles are vibrated across the surface, eventually settling into the gravitational low points like water filling a reservoir. This process of electrostatic levitation and seismic shaking ensures that the dust is perfectly distributed, smoothing out the rugged topography of the underlying stones. From a distance, these features look like serene frozen lakes, a place where the chaotic history of the asteroid has finally found a moment of perfect level rest. They are the quietest places in a world of rubble, silent basins where the cosmic sand has finally stopped its long slow-motion journey across the stone. Standing on the edge of such a pond, you would see a surface as undisturbed as a deep space dream, reflecting the cold light of a billion stars. Solar radiation gently pushes against the asymmetric and irregular shapes of these bodies, gradually altering their rotation rate over millions of years. This subtle pressure of light acts like a phantom hand, catching the jagged facets and deep shadows of the asteroid and causing it to spin either faster or slower through the Yorp effect. Over vast stretches of time, this can lead to the asteroid spinning so fast that it begins to shed its own material, reshaping its entire silhouette from the equator outward. This invisible sculpting by sunlight ensures that the rubble pile is never truly static, even when it appears to be drifting in a state of absolute peace. The sun itself acts as a cosmic artist, slowly carving and rotating the stone to its own silent electromagnetic rhythm. It is a profound realization that even the weightless touch of a photon can eventually move a mountain, provided it has the patience of an eon to do its work. The light of the star you see in the distance is the very force that guides the movement and form of these ancient drifting stones. Their persistent existence proves that in the vacuum of space, chaotic destruction often leads directly to gentle, continuous reconstruction. When a solid asteroid is shattered by a violent impact, the resulting debris does not always vanish, but often regathers itself into a new, porous form under the influence of its own gravity. This continuous cycle of rebirth suggests that even in the cold vacuum, the universe is never truly empty, just as your mind is now full of a peaceful, quiet light. The rubble pile is the final stable outcome of a billion years of collisions and rebirths, a testament to the enduring power of gravity to create order from the wreckage. It is a world that has been broken and remade countless times, each version a new arrangement of the same ancient wandering stones. As you rest in this moment of total tranquility, feel the quiet strength of this reconstruction, knowing that even the most shattered things can find a way to become whole again. This is the ultimate lesson of the asteroid belt, that from the pieces of the past, the universe gently builds a new and enduring future. In the absolute tranquility of this reconstructed system, a visitor once arrived that had no intention of staying, a dark and strangely elongated traveller named Oumuamua. It tumbled through our neighbourhood as a long, cigar-shaped shard from a completely different and unknown star system, its very presence defying the local laws of orbital symmetry. Unlike the loose collections of stone that drift in our own neighbourhood, this visitor was a solid, weathered monolith that had already completed a journey across the unimaginable gulfs between suns. This cosmic structure of its form, vastly longer than it was wide, suggested a history of extreme gravitational stretching, or a fragment of a world torn apart by a tidal event we can only begin to theorize. As it moved toward the sun, it exhibited a subtle, non-gravitational acceleration, behaving almost like a natural sail caught in the pressure of starlight. It did not belong to the order of our belt or the quiet rhythm of our planets, but passed through like a ghost, leaving us with more questions than answers about the architects of other worlds. The sheer strangeness of its trajectory meant it was merely a fleeting guest, a transient shadow in the dark that challenged our understanding of what a celestial body could be. It entered from the direction of Lyra, dipped through our orbital plane, and vanished back into the velvet blackness as quickly as it had arrived. We are left only with the memory of its passing, a silent reminder that our sanctuary is occasionally visited by the messengers of the deep galaxy, reminding us that reconstruction is a universal law, even across the light years. Deep within the lightless expanse, these interstellar wanderers travel the empty, freezing voids of the galaxy for millions of years before ever encountering another star or a single ray of warming light. Their journey is one of absolute and profound isolation, crossing the vast deserts of the interstellar medium where the density of matter is almost zero. In this eternal night, the only companions are the distant, unblinking eyes of a billion suns and the faint, cold hum of the cosmic microwave background. This structure of their existence means that time itself seems to lose its traditional meaning as the stones drift through the vacuum for eons without any detectable change. The vacuum of the galaxy is far more vast than the spaces within our own solar system, requiring a traveller to persist for geologic timescales just to move from one neighbourhood to the next. They sail through the nothing between the somethings, carrying the silence of the void in their very marrow as they cross the galactic spiral. Such a journey would be a descent into the ultimate stillness, where the lack of any external force allows the rock to remain in a state of perfect, undisturbed preservation. Every year spent in this dark sea is a year of total quiet, far removed from the busy, light-filled orbits of a planetary system. These nomads are the monks of the cosmos, defined by their patience and their refusal to be tethered to any single home, finding their own quiet strength in the middle of the infinite black. Surprisingly, the universe has endowed these travellers with such immense speed that they are entirely immune to the gravitational traps that hold our local planets in place. Unlike local asteroids, which are bound to the sun in closed, predictable loops, the extreme velocity of these nomads allows them to easily break free of our star's influence and return to the galactic deep. They move on hyperbolic trajectories, entering our system with more energy than our gravity can ever hope to drain away. This cosmic structure of their motion is what defines them as true interstellar citizens, belonging to the entire galaxy rather than a single star. As they pass through our inner regions, the sun's massive pull only serves to bend their path slightly, acting as a gravitational slingshot that flings them back out into the void with even greater purpose. They are visitors who refuse to be captured, travellers who maintain their independence even when faced with the overwhelming presence of a massive sun. Notice how this freedom of movement creates a dynamic exchange of matter across the light years, turning the galaxy into a vast, interconnected network of shared materials. As you visualize this swift and graceful exit from our local realm, allow your own body to feel a sense of total physical lightness. Your mind can drift with the rock, exiting the heavy pulls of the day and entering a state of unburdened, fast-moving peace. The deep red crust on these travellers is a protective shield built by eons of cosmic rays bombarding their surface during the long and lonely voyage through the stars. In the absence of an atmosphere or magnetic field, the raw matter of the rock is directly exposed to high-energy protons and heavy nuclei travelling at nearly the speed of light. This relentless microscopic rain causes complex chemical reactions on the surface, breaking down simple molecules and reassembling them into dark organic residues. If we were to look closer, we would see that this space-tan is a thick carbon-rich patina that insulates the pristine interior from further radiation damage. This process, known as ion irradiation weathering, paints the asteroid in a somber palette of deep auburn and brick red, a visual record of its exposure to the galactic environment. The redder the stone, the longer it has been drifting in the interstellar night, collecting the scars of a journey that spans half the history of the galaxy. This structure of the surface acts as a biological and chemical history, preserving the internal materials in a state of absolute dark security against the harshness of the void. It is a shell hardened by the very forces that would destroy it, a paradox where the destructive energy of the cosmos creates a layer of enduring protection. The stone carries its age in its skin, a silent witness to the radiation fields of 1,000 different star systems, surviving perfectly in the absolute silence. If we were to look closer, the second visitor, the interstellar comet Borisov, revealed through its glowing emerald-tinged tail that the basic chemistry of distant star systems is surprisingly similar to our own. When this traveller began to warm in our sun's light, it released gases like carbon monoxide and water vapour, providing the first direct evidence of the chemical composition of another solar system. Despite coming from a completely unknown origin, the ingredients it carried were remarkably familiar to those found in our own local comets and asteroids. This cosmic structure of matter suggests that the fundamental building blocks of planets, and perhaps life itself, are universal across the galaxy. The same elemental recipes used to build our home were clearly at work in the distant nursery that birthed Borisov, creating a sense of chemical kinship across the light years. It is a profound realization that the ingredients for water and air are not unique to our sun but are scattered liberally throughout the entire galactic disk. Surprisingly, the universe seems to follow a consistent set of blueprints, ensuring that whether a rock is born here or 10,000 light-years away, it speaks the same atomic language. Borisov was a bridge between worlds, a chemical messenger that confirmed our place in a much larger, surprisingly uniform family of stars. Just as the comet brings its ancient water to our sun, feel a gentle wave of relaxation washing over your body, grounding you in the universal peace of the stars. Imagine the countless silent starscapes these rocks have passed through during their multi-million-year odyssey, before briefly warming themselves in our familiar sunlight. They have drifted past the swirling nurseries of new stars, through the cold nebulae of gas and dust, and perhaps near the event horizons of ancient dormant black holes. Their journey takes them through regions of space where the constellations we know would be unrecognizable, reshuffled into entirely new and alien patterns of light. This structure of the path reveals a panoramic view of the galaxy's long-term evolution, witnessed in total, unbreaking silence. They have crossed through the spiral arms of the galaxy, experiencing the shifting gravitational tides of the core and the thin, lonely reaches of the outer rim. For the rock, our sun is just one more pinprick of light in a long sequence of brief encounters, a momentary warmth before the inevitable return to the ice. Notice the immense quiet scale of this travel, and let your own perspective expand to encompass the entire galaxy. As you settle into this vast cosmic viewpoint, feel a deep and abiding sense of stillness settling over your resting frame, as if you too were drifting through a sea of stars. Your thoughts can drift like the nomad, passing through the star-filled halls of the universe without ever needing to touch the ground. Rogue planets, those massive and solitary worlds that wander the galaxy without a parent star, likely ejected these shards during the violent, chaotic formation phases of their own alien solar systems. In the early days of any planetary family, the massive gravitational jostling of giant worlds acts like a cosmic slingshot, flinging smaller rocks out of the system at immense speeds. Once a rock is accelerated past the escape velocity of its home star, it is doomed to become a nomad, forever exiled from the heat and light of its birth. This structure of origin means that every interstellar visitor is a fragment of a failed or shattered world, a piece of a history that was forcibly interrupted. They are the refugees of planetary birth, cast out into the dark as the larger worlds claim the stable orbits for themselves. The very existence of these nomads is a testament to the brutal efficiency of gravity, which cleanses young solar systems of their excess debris and sends it into the galactic commons. Surprisingly, the universe is filled with these ejected ambassadors, each one carrying the story of a distant and chaotic youth into the silent reaches of the void. They are the debris of creation, the leftovers of a process that is as destructive as it is generative, yet they find a new purpose in their eternal flight. Every stone we see is a survivor of a gravitational war, having been launched into the dark to find a different kind of peace. They forever carry with them the unique, unalterable elemental fingerprint of the unknown star that originally birthed them, locked within the crystal lattices of their minerals. Every star system has a slightly different chemical signature, dictated by the specific blend of elements available in the nebula that collapse to form it. These ratios of oxygen, carbon, and heavier metals are fixed at the moment the rock solidifies, creating a permanent chemical identification that cannot be erased by the vacuum of space. Deep within the stone, these ratios remain pristine, entirely unaffected by the passage through different radiation fields or the influence of other suns. By analysing these fingerprints, scientists can eventually determine exactly what kind of star produced the Nomad, and perhaps even where in the galaxy it was born. It is a forensic investigation on a galactic scale, using the atomic composition of a single pebble to reconstruct the properties of a sun we will never see. This structure of the matter ensures that no matter how far the rock wanders, its origins are never truly lost or forgotten. It remains a piece of its home star, a wandering ambassador that speaks of a specific time and place in the history of the galaxy. As you consider this unalterable connection to home, feel a sense of profound and grounded comfort in your own resting place. Our own solar system likely expelled trillions of such objects in its youth, sending rocky and icy ambassadors out into the wider galaxy to wander among the stars. During the migration of the gas giants, the massive shifts in gravity acted like a giant rake, scattering the leftover building blocks of the planets into the deep void. Most of the material that didn't become a planet was not destroyed, but was simply evicted, launched on one-way trajectories into the great beyond. Notice how this exchange turns the galaxy into a shared reservoir of planetary history, where every star system contributes to the collective memory of the whole. As you contemplate this vast, outgoing tide of matter, feel a sense of profound and peaceful connection to the entire universe. Your own world is not an island, but a source of light and matter that ripples outward forever, contributing to the quiet strength of the cosmos. It is a profound realization that the space between stars is not entirely empty, but filled with a gentle, invisible snowstorm of solitary stones drifting through the night. While we often think of the void as a vacuum of pure nothingness, it is actually a crowded frontier, populated by trillions upon trillions of nomads that we are only just beginning to detect. They are the silent, dark matter of the planetary world, an invisible population that outweighs the planets themselves in terms of sheer numbers. If we were to look closer at the true density of the galaxy, we would see that these stones are the most common solid objects in existence, far outnumbering the worlds that orbit stars. They form a thin, galactic-scale atmosphere of debris, a connective tissue that links every star system to its neighbours through a shared, drifting heritage. The emptiness is actually a garden of stones, a quiet and cold expanse where the history of the galaxy is constantly being mixed and redistributed. Surprisingly, the universe has filled the dark with these small, peaceful travellers, ensuring that even the deepest voids have a story to tell. This realization brings a sense of comfort and fullness to our understanding of the night sky, replacing the cold vacuum with a sea of ancient memories. The stars are not isolated points of light, but are connected by an endless, gentle fall of cosmic snow that has been falling for billions of years, creating a permanent bridge across the silence. The bridge of material that spans the silence of the void is most tangibly expressed in the very water that currently fills our vast blue oceans and sustains every living cell on our vibrant spinning home. The heavy bombardment of the early solar system, driven by a relentless and necessary tide of asteroid impacts, delivered a significant portion of the life-giving liquid needed to transform Earth from a parched volcanic wasteland into a thriving, hydrated world capable of sustaining the complex dance of existence. During this chaotic epoch of planetary formation, billions of icy wanderers were nudged from their stable orbits in the outer reaches and flung toward the inner sun, crashing into the cooling crust and releasing their ancient frozen cargo to become the first primeval seas that would eventually host the very dawn of biological complexity and the rise of consciousness. Beyond the life-giving gift of water, these travellers brought with them the very foundations of our world's rarity and industrial wealth, providing the essential building blocks for our modern economy and the precious artefacts of our history. Essential heavy metals like gold and platinum found near Earth's surface arrived exclusively via late-stage asteroid delivery long after the planet's own iron had sunk deep into the inaccessible core during its initial, molten phase of existence. This cosmic seasoning provided the shallow crust with the precious elements that would eventually drive human industry and art, ensuring that the treasures we mine today are actually the ancient remnants of shattered stars delivered by wandering stones across the vastness of space. This structure of celestial intervention has repeatedly steered the course of biological existence, often through moments of sudden and planet-altering transformation that redefine the hierarchy of life on a global scale. A massive impact in the Yucatan Peninsula famously altered Earth's climate in a single, cataclysmic afternoon, sending up a thick shroud of soot that reset the biological clock and swept away the dominant giants to allow tiny, adaptable mammals to flourish in the shadows. It was a violent, light-filled pivot point that effectively cleared the path for the rise of our own species, proving that the sudden destruction of one world is often the necessary and beautiful birth of another. Surprisingly, the universe uses these energetic encounters to refresh the planetary canvas, rather than simply wiping it clean, stirring the pot of creation through the immense heat and chemical exchange of collision. Beyond mere destruction, these impacts forcefully stir up planetary crusts, releasing trapped chemical nutrients like phosphorus and vital minerals that are essential for the genesis of new biological chains and the continued fertility of our world. Each strike acts as a massive geological plough, bringing fresh material to the surface and creating the hydrothermal systems that may have served as the original, warm cradles of our earliest ancestors. As you contemplate this deep, restorative churning of the Earth, feel your own body sinking into a state of total heavy relaxation, letting the support beneath you carry every ounce of your weight. If we were to look closer at our nearest celestial neighbour, we would find the unedited history of this violent sculpting that our own world has worked so hard to erase through the power of wind, water and life. Look at the scarred face of the moon, which serves as a perfect quiet record of the millions of asteroid strikes that Earth's active weather and shifting plates have simply washed away into the abyss of time. It is a silent mirror reflecting the ancient barrage, a fossilized map of the impacts that once shaped our own landscape, and continues to tell the story of our neighbourhood's turbulent, fascinating, and deeply interconnected youth. These fragments of larger, shattered worlds continue to find their way to us even today, offering a direct physical connection to the hearts of other protoplanets that never quite made it to planetary maturity. The shattered fragments of the asteroid Vesta frequently fall to Earth as meteorites, providing us with direct free samples of a differentiated planetary crust that was born in the same fires as our own world. These stony messengers allow us to touch the geology of a world hundreds of millions of miles away, bypassing the need for expensive probes to understand the internal anatomy of a developing solar system and the birth of rocky worlds. This cosmic structure of destruction and subsequent beauty extends even to the majestic silhouettes of the giant outer worlds, creating the shimmering halos that define our visual understanding of the deep heavens. Planetary rings, like those adorning the magnificent and ethereal sphere of Saturn, are highly likely the shredded, glittering remains of an icy asteroid that wandered too close and was torn apart by the gas giant's gravity. What we perceive as a symbol of celestial perfection and peace is actually the ghost of a wanderer that lost its battle with the deep space tides, its frozen body transformed into a million points of orbiting light. We must realize that these violent collisions were the necessary growing pains that successfully gathered scattered dust and rock into the massive spherical worlds we know today. Without the persistent gravitational attraction and subsequent merging of these smaller stones, the massive planets would have remained nothing more than a thin, unorganized mist of cold stardust. Every impact was a deliberate step towards stability, a chaotic addition that eventually built the solid ground upon which all of human history, art and culture have been written. Notice how your own breath has found a steady, quiet rhythm, echoing the long-term stability that emerged from this ancient and necessary chaos. In the grand cosmic clockwork, asteroids are far more than mere debris. They are the remaining, untouched raw clay from which the masterpiece of the solar system was violently sculpted. They represent the original building materials that were never quite folded into a larger world, staying behind in the void to remind us of the universe's humble, rocky beginnings. They are the leftover scraps in the sculptor's studio, holding the unedited texture of the creation event for those who know how to read the stone with patience and wonder. Far from being simple bringers of doom or random hazards in the dark, they are the quiet, essential architects of long-term terrestrial geology and evolving biology. They have shaped the chemistry of our atmosphere, the depth of our seas, and the very trajectory of evolution through a series of purposeful, energetic touches across the eons. As you visualize a quiet, shadowed crater on Earth that has long since healed and blossomed into a vibrant green lake, feel a sense of profound and total peace washing over you, knowing that even the most violent beginnings can lead to a state of absolute tranquil beauty. This state of absolute tranquil beauty is perhaps most perfectly realized in the way an asteroid exists in a permanent state of suspended animation, perfectly preserving the violent chaos of its birth in utter, eternal silence. While the larger planets have spent eons churning their interiors, shifting their continents, and erasing their earliest memories through weather and time, these smaller stones have simply waited. They are the only objects in our neighbourhood that have managed to hold on to the raw, jagged energy of the solar system's creation, locking that prehistoric heat into a shell of deep freeze stasis. If we were to look closer at the grain of these rocks, we would see a physical map of the original solar nebula, uncorrupted by the geological processing that has smoothed over our own world. Every fracture and every crystal is a fossilized record of a moment when the gas of a dying star was first becoming the solid ground of a new home. In this profound and lightless stillness, the asteroid remains a living witness to the original fire, carrying the memory of a chaotic beginning into the peaceful reaches of the infinite void. This cosmic structure reveals a haunting and beautiful paradox, for they are simultaneously the most potentially destructive forces in a planetary system and the fragile, necessary delivery vehicles of life. They carry the kinetic energy required to reset a world's biological clock, yet they also harbour the very water and organic compounds that allow that life to emerge in the first place. This dual nature makes them both the harbingers of the end and the sowers of the beginning, moving through the dark as the ultimate arbiters of planetary destiny. Surprisingly, the universe has designed these stones to be the primary couriers of the galaxy's chemical treasures, ensuring that the ingredients for consciousness are scattered even to the most remote and barren corners. They drift as silent, rocky seeds, waiting for the rare and high-energy moment of impact to release their life-giving cargo onto a receptive world. As you contemplate this magnificent balance between creation and destruction, allow a deep sense of stillness to settle into your chest, letting your heart find a slow and steady rhythm that mirrors the unhurried journey of these celestial travellers. To look at a primitive asteroid is to gaze directly across 4.5 billion years of unbroken, safely frozen time, bypassing the billions of years of history that have passed on Earth. When we touch the surface of such a rock, we are reaching back to a period before the oceans were filled, before the moon was formed, and before the sun had even fully settled into its long life. It is a direct and physical bridge to the era of planetary embryos, providing a tangible connection to a time when our entire world was nothing more than a swirling disk of dust. This structure of temporal preservation is unique to the cold vacuum, where the lack of heat and chemical interaction ensures that the rock remains as fresh as the day it solidified. While everything around us on Earth is the product of continuous recycling and change, the asteroid remains an island of the original past, entirely immune to the progress of the eons. It is a profound and comforting thought to realize that the beginning of our story is still out there, drifting in the dark and waiting to be read by those who seek the truth of our origins. Though they appear to the distant eye as dead and inert stones, their paths through the void are a constantly shifting dynamic dance, dictated by the invisible gravity of distant giants. Every asteroid is tethered to the massive worlds of Jupiter and Saturn by subtle, vibrational threads that pull and nudge them into complex resonant orbits. These gravitational masters act as the silent conductors of a vast rocky orchestra, ensuring that every stone moves in a precise and mathematically beautiful pattern across the solar system. Notice how this invisible architecture creates a sense of order in a region that might otherwise be a field of chaotic debris. The asteroids do not wander aimlessly, but follow paths that are woven into the very fabric of space and time, responding to the heavy pulse of the gas giants with every passing year. As you visualize these wide and sweeping orbits, feel the muscles in your arms and legs become completely heavy, letting go of all resistance as you sink further into a state of total, weightless relaxation. Deep within their cold and dark interiors, the lingering chemical memory of extinct, short-lived radioactive isotopes whispers of a fiery beginning that has long since vanished. Specifically, the daughter products of isotopes like aluminum-26 provide undeniable proof that the asteroid belt was once a place of intense, radiant heat that melted the hearts of even the smallest stones. This internal warmth was the primary engine of early geological change, driving the separation of metals and the flow of water before the stones eventually surrendered to the encroaching cold. This isotopic signature is the only remaining pulse of a heart that stopped beating billions of years ago, a ghostly record of a thermal history that defined the first few million years of the nebula. It tells a story of a brief and violent youth followed by an eternity of serene and lightless cooling, capturing the transition from the energy of the stardust to the stillness of the void. These microscopic chemical traces are the silent internal echoes of a supernova that detonated nearby, providing the spark that ignited the long process of planetary formation. If we were to look closer at our own cultural history, we would see how something so incredibly small can entirely capture the imagination and scientific ambition of a species bound to a planet millions of miles away. We have sent our most advanced machines to graze the surfaces of these wandering rocks, treating them with the reverence usually reserved for the most sacred artifacts of our own history. This collective focus reveals a deep and innate desire to understand the small things, recognizing that the secrets of the entire cosmos are often hidden within the grain of a single drifting stone. Surprisingly, the universe has placed these ancient records just within our reach, serving as a constant challenge to our intellect and our capacity for wonder. By reaching out to touch an asteroid, we're effectively reaching out to touch the mind of the cosmos itself, seeking a reflection of our own existence in the charcoal dark dust of the main belt. This ambition is a testament to the fact that we are a species born of the stars, forever looking back at the materials that built us with a sense of profound and quiet recognition. They perfectly bridge the immense gap between mere microscopic dust grains and fully formed planets, occupying the delicate middle ground of cosmic creation, where the potential for growth is still alive. An asteroid is a world that was paused in the middle of its development, a snapshot of the accretion process that was interrupted before it could achieve the massive gravity of a true planet. They represent the awkward and beautiful adolescence of matter, showing us exactly how a cloud of gas begins the long and difficult transition into a solid, living home. This structure of the size hierarchy is essential for the stability of the entire system, as it provides the raw material and the gravitational buffers that allow the larger worlds to remain in their peaceful paths. They are the scaffolding of the solar system, the intermediate steps that were left behind once the main structure was complete. As you imagine this spectrum of scale from the tiniest grain to the massive sphere, feel a sense of total and expansive peace, letting your mind drift effortlessly across the vast distances of the void. Surprisingly, their journey does not last forever, as their gradual and almost unnoticeable spiral decay into the sun over eons is a process so slow it mocks the brief burning lifespan of stars themselves. Through the subtle and constant pressure of sunlight, known as the Yarkovsky effect, the rotation of the asteroid causes a tiny immeasurable thrust that slowly alters its orbital path. Over millions of years, this minute force is enough to nudge a stone out of its stable belt and send it on a long inward journey toward the central fire of our sun. This final transition is a slow-motion sunset that takes longer than the entire history of life on Earth to complete, a testament to the incredible patience of the laws of physics. The asteroid eventually surrenders its ancient ice and cold stone to the very star that birthed it, completing a multi-billion-year circuit through the dark. It is a quiet and dignified end for a wanderer, a final return to the source of all energy in a display of total and unyielding thermal surrender. The profound emptiness of the asteroid belt is a constant reminder that the universe favours vast, silent distances over clustered active matter in the grand design of the heavens. While we focus on the bright points of the planets and stars, the true nature of the cosmos is one of immense and peaceful gaps where nothing happens for millions of years at a time. This void is not a sign of absence, but a sign of a space that is perfectly balanced, providing the room that matter requires to exist without constant collision and chaos. Notice how this vastness allows for a type of peace that is impossible to find on a busy and crowded planet, where every square inch is filled with the noise of existence. In the belt, the silence is the primary reality, a thick and comforting blanket that protects the stones from the pressures of the universe. As you settle into this realization of cosmic space, feel your breath becoming as vast and quiet as the void itself, letting every worry dissolve into the immense starlit distance of the dark. Ultimately, these wandering stones teach us that nothing in the cosmos is ever truly finished, but rather constantly being recycled, reformed, and redirected into new states of being. An asteroid that was once part of a shattered planet may one day become the ring of a giant, the soil of a moon, or the water in a distant ocean. They are the eternal nomads of the solar system, carrying the potential of the past into the possibilities of a future that we can only begin to imagine. This final lesson of the journey is one of total and unwavering hope, for it proves that even the most broken and scattered things have a place and a purpose in the grand design. Every stone is a part of a larger whole, a piece of a story that is still being written in the silent movements of the gravity wells and the slow-motion dance of the light. As you rest in the absolute tranquil beauty of this realization, know that you too are a part of this eternal cycle, a beautiful and necessary fragment of a universe that is forever and peacefully becoming. We are physically composed of the exact same star-forged dust that drifts in these silent belts, meaning that when we study the lonely wandering asteroids, the universe is simply reaching across the dark to touch its own ancient memories. This structure of our own biology is a living continuation of the same process that gathered the first stones into a family of dancing worlds. Surprisingly, the minerals that strengthen your bones and the iron that carries oxygen through your veins were once the raw, untouched clay of the solar system's early architecture. If we look closer at the deep history of our existence, we find that the boundaries of the self extend far beyond the atmosphere of our home planet. Every atom within you was forged in the same furnace and cooled in the same silence as the ancient boulders we have discussed tonight. This profound connection creates a state of total belonging, where you're never truly alone as long as the stars remain in the sky. Deep within your resting frame, the physical journey is coming to a close as your focus settles on the very tips of your toes. The weight of your feet is increasing, pressing gently into the fabric with a slow and steady gravity that mirrors the ancient settling of dust on a distant, silent world. This quiet relaxation moves upward through your ankles and into your calves, dissolving every last trace of the day's movement. Rising upward, your knees and thighs are becoming completely soft, sinking into a state of total, unburdened weightiness. This structure of comfort continues to rise into your hips and lower back, filling the core of your body with a deep and persistent sense of stillness. Every vertebra in your spine is finding its perfect place, settling into the supportive surface like a stone finding its final rest in the middle of a peaceful belt. The soft texture of the covers against your hands and fingers is the only sensation that remains, a gentle tactile anchor in the absolute quiet of the room. Surprisingly, the palms of your hands are becoming warm and heavy, resting perfectly still against the fabric of the bed. Flowing through your wrists and into your forearms, this relaxation removes the need for any further action or effort. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to surrender its last remaining strength to the steady, unwavering support of the mattress. Every muscle in your chest and shoulders is now softening, surrendering to the natural and effortless pull of the surface beneath you. In this quiet room, the sound of your own breathing is a steady cadence that marks the transition into a deep and restorative state. Every part of your neck and jaw is now releasing its grip, allowing your head to feel incredibly heavy and completely supported by the pillow. Small muscles around your eyes and across your forehead are smoothing out, dissolving into a state of total and unreflective calm. The darkness behind your closed eyes is a soft and welcoming environment, a place of total safety where you can finally set down every heavy burden and simply be. Wait is the final sensation as you surrender completely to the night. Every breath is a step deeper into the quiet, a slow and certain descent into a rest that is as calm as it is long. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.